Welcome to the Movie Swatch for Free Divide. What's up, Popo?
All right, we're off to a great start.
Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. Second take was much better. Leaving it in. I'm your host, Dylan, with my co-host,
Gab.
And today we are going to talk about a great movie, one that I think is a movie to watch before you die, The Truman Show. But before we start doing that, we're going to tell you why you're listening to us, and Gab's going to start doing that right now.
So you are listening to us because we have some serious credentials. I am a former actor. I have my degree in theater performance, and that includes things like script analysis, character development, plot devices, and all of those wonderful things that make these performances we love to watch so captivating, so realistic. Dylan, how about you?
I'm a former video editor. I went to school for film, video, and interactive media. I've read many leather-bound books about the art of film, and I just love movies, and I hope you love movies too if you're listening to our podcast. So, Gab, we're going to start talking about this 1998 seminal film. And since I'm the one who introduced it, it's my turn to ask you, Gab, what is this about?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
The Truman Show is a movie about a man who, unbeknownst to him, has been the star of essentially a reality television show. I guess I wouldn't say reality television show because all of the people in his life are actors. He lives on a soundstage. He has absolutely no idea that every aspect of his life is falsified for television. There are commercials that come up. And he is essentially just kind of in a hamster wheel of this false reality. And it's kind of the discovery of him, or his discovery and his escape.
All right, let's see how close you are to the IMDb plot summary, which is...
Something tells me far away.
Well, you're close. This is just much more succinct. An insurance salesman discovers his whole life is actually a reality TV show.
Oh, so you would classify it as reality?
I would totally call it a reality TV show, just because, the show's about him, and for him, it's all real.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. There is a moment in the beginning where they say, "We're tired of watching actors give these falsified performances and these fake emotions, and everything that Truman gives us is real." And it's like, oh, that's interesting. It is real.
It is real, and it's real for all of them in the sense that I don't think they ever say like there's a script of any kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although we'll get into what might be scripted in a second. We got some taglines here, and by some I mean a bunch.
Oh,
I kind of like all of these. First one, all the world's a stage. The story of a lifetime.
Oh.
On the air, unaware.
Oh.
The world is watching. This one specifically has an exclamation point, so we like to watch.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah, that one felt a little weird.
That's where that's the one they save the exclamation point for?
That's the only one that specifically has an exclamation point. And then the last one is watch what happens.
I guess that's fine.
I think those last two are the worst. The first four
watch
I like
what
more.
happens feels like that should be the tagline for every movie. Like, isn't that the goal? Isn't that what we're here for?
Please give us your money.
Yeah.
God damn it, Gab, you still don't watch It's Always Sunny, but I'm gonna make the reference anyway. Money me money now, money me a lot.
I don't even get it. That's funny.
Okay, so I think that what we want to do more is start talking a little bit more about the story, get a little more into the spoilers before we start to give our opinions. Basically, Truman Burbank is a 30-year-old man who has been legally adopted by a corporation as a baby, which feels fucked up already.
Yeah.
And sort of our inciting incident is when one of the studio lights falls from the top of the soundstage, which is so big that it is one of only two things that can be seen from space that are man-made, apparently. And that is sort of the beginning of Truman's awakening, that the world around him is not real. Should I go on more about what happens?
Well, without really spoiling it for those who haven't seen it, he starts to see some questionable things, and I think it's important to note that he has kind of never really left this sort of like perfect area that he lives in. And anytime he brings up the idea of wanting to travel, he is very quickly told that it's a bad idea. Dylan, this was really the first time that I've ever truly watched this movie, so I think you would probably do a better job than me at explaining it. But there are just he starts to unravel. You really can't hear this baby crying behind me. Listener, I just moved into a beautiful, stunning, fabulous new apartment.
I feel like maybe the tiniest bit I'm starting to hear.
This apartment is the nicest apartment I've ever lived in my entire life. It's beautiful, stunning, amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but the walls are so paper thin.
Gab here is flaunting her wealth while she asks you, the viewer, for Venmos. Unbelievable.
Well, how do you think I found this apartment, Dylan? It was all of the Venmos from this podcast.
Bedroom wall. Oh no. There we go. My bedroom wall is must
like this baby's bedroom. I'm like, den, crib, where do you put a baby? And it is horribly distracting. But anyway, so I think you would probably do a better job than me at explaining like kind of how this all unfolds, but it does start with the light falling, and a lot of weird things start happening as Truman starts to notice
the light falling makes Truman more aware. Yes. And then what I'm guessing, maybe, it's something that I feel like I wanted to bring up with you. I'm not sure if maybe it was always a type of thing that maybe the studio would have like, a fuck up here and there. But it feels like I'm like, once the crack is there, the dam bursts open with them making like terrible mistake after mistake that like would make it obvious. His radio, which normally only plays classical music because it's all public domain and it's free to use for the television show. All of a sudden one day it's interfered with and he can hear the people speaking to each other on the set. You know what I mean? So he hears them talking about him. It
like chimes into their walkie-talkie system.
Yes. So he can hear them saying like, okay, he's driving down this street now. He just starts noticing these things that are sort of very obvious if you were aware of it, but if you're not aware of it and you're not thinking about it, why would he have noticed it in the past type things?
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, it's really finding out if he will escape, if he wants to escape, and if he will be allowed to escape. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I also think like it's important to kind of throw in there too that there are two really big moments that we see that influence Truman. The first is when he's a child and he is sailing with his father. They're out on the ocean, quote unquote ocean, this fictitious ocean that he believes is the ocean. And they decide they need to kill off the father because they need to make him afraid of the water. So he is put into this fake storm. The father falls off of the boat and is made to appear to drown. And so Truman believes that not only did his father drown, but it's his fault that his father drowned. And then we're also shown a scene in college where he, falls in love with this woman who is not the woman that they've decided he is going to marry on the show. So they have to find a way to separate them. They don't want them to be together. She attempts to tell him he's on a TV show. And those two moments really shape him because now he's married to somebody that he sort of likes, but doesn't necessarily want to be with. He kind of lost the woman of his dreams, so to speak. He's told that she's moving to Fiji. This fucking kid, are you kidding me?
No,
they're just letting this kid cry. I don't know what to do.
I don't appreciate their parenting method. You need to tell them we have a podcast. Honestly,
I mean, I'm worried about like the cat being too loud in the morning when I wake up early, but I'm like, my fucking podcast is happening here, bro. Like, this is how I make the money.
You guys start listening to death metal now at night and be like, what? You got to up the ante, Gab.
Honestly, I'm going to start fucking tap dancing. But so he's married to somebody that he likes, but is not the love of his life. And he always dreams of going to Fiji to find this girl. And every time he talks about going to Fiji, whether he goes into the travel agent's office and there's all these signs up about how planes are crashing all the time and it could happen to you, or people saying like, oh, if you leave, like whatever, they're just trying to get him to stay. And he slowly, and then there's another moment where and maybe you can explain this a little better, the situation with his father, because I think I might be a little bit unclear on how it unfolds.
Well, again, something that is very much a part of Truman becoming more aware of the events around him. The actor who played his father sneaks back into the set. Truman sees him. He realizes, he has a moment where he's face to face with him, and he says, "Dad," and immediately, like, as close to having real sirens go off as they could, two people drag him away onto a bus. The bus drives away. The bus won't stop for Truman, and he tries to tell his mother, did Dad have a freaking twin? Because I just saw him. You know what I mean? And everybody just sort of ignores him, and it's one of those things that he can't ignore. So it's just something that further brings him to the point of, becoming aware of what's happening around him.
Yeah.
And eventually, to sort of try and compensate, they do decide to bring the dad back into the cast. And, what's the classic TV move when somebody disappears for years? They're going to say he had amnesia or something. You know what I mean?
Right,
to try and hopefully sedate Truman back into peacefully living in the world.
Yeah. And they'll show clips of people watching the Truman Show in a bar and talking about, like, how will it end, how many days it's been on the air, and people are really just fascinated by this man who they are both kind of relating to, because he's just living a regular life, and he's just like you and I, but also kind of watching like an animal in the zoo, where it's like we're all in on the fact that you are in a cage and you kind of are just stuck there trying to make it feel like a real life. And it's so interesting. And honestly, Dylan, I think this is really, do you hear that?
What?
Nothing. I'm sorry. I hear the child and it feels very loud to me. Listener, I promise I will stop once we've gotten
We're ignoring
used to
this child. We're done with him.
Screaming fucking banshee. It's like a feral child in the other room. I think this is the first time that we have a movie that is, I don't want to say serious and I don't want to say deep, but I feel like the things that I have to say are, I just felt like I related to this movie more than any other movie we've discussed.
Well, I think that the great thing about this movie is that you can put a lot of theme into it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a movie that you can watch at the surface and enjoy. And it's a movie that if subtextually you want to think about, like, it's saying this or it's saying that, you can certainly start to do that. Yeah. And I think I hate a movie that only does the latter, where it's all subtext, which is why, like, I know you love Birdman, but I don't like Birdman, because to me, I'm like, all right, but what the fuck does it actually mean? What actually is happening?
Right.
You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. A Black Swan. I mean, I feel like you kind of said the same thing.
Yes, exactly. I did say it about Black Swan. And I love that this movie, if you just want to watch what happens in this movie, you're still going to enjoy it and get something out of it. And if you want to spend the next hour, day, week thinking about it, you can do that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you could still get a lot out of it. I think, having said that, maybe we should start to get into our opinions.
Let's do it.
In this critic's opinion,
that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
I've seen this movie more, so I feel like I wasn't, surprised by anything. I think the only thing I would say that surprised me is rewatching this for the first time in a few years. I didn't realize how long it takes for you to, one, start seeing audience shots, which I love the audience shots of, like, the regular people.
Mm-hmm.
And to, two, meet Christoph, because we don't meet Christoph until halfway into the movie. Christoph, who is the director of the Truman Show.
Although he's the opening scene of the movie as well.
Yes. Okay. So I'm already making an ass of myself.
No. But we don't meet him. We just see him.
Yeah. You don't get introduced to the control room, I should say, until 50 minutes in or halfway through. And I think it just does such a good job of making you really like Truman.
Yeah.
I will say, I think when I was younger and I watched this movie, I used to think, like, man, it's kind of fucked up that Truman is, like, making this picture of this girl that he knew a long time ago when he's got this wife. And rewatching it, I'm like, oh wait, this marriage is terrible.
Yeah.
She does not care about him at all. She is there to spew product placement at him.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is one of the best scenes in the movie, is when she's talking about the Mount Cocoa drink or whatever it is. And he's just,
Yep.
what the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to? You know what I mean? Jim Carrey does such a good job, and I feel like this is the first movie where I saw that he could seriously act.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? It's one of those, to me, I think this is probably his best movie as all around. You know what I mean? There are movies where he does more
100%.
dramatic work. There are movies where he does more comedic work, but this is such a all around dramatic character that I find so interesting.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I watched this with Corey and right before I said, Jim Carrey is like, he's so great, but it must be very challenging for him because he's just always Jim Carrey. Like he's just got this larger than life, and he's amazing and no one else can do that. But, every time you watch a movie, whether it's The Mask or The Grinch or Liar Liar, it's like, oh, Jim Carrey. And then we watched this and I was like, this was it did have Jim Carrey in it. Like when he says good morning, good afternoon, and good night, you can see it's Jim Carrey, and you see those moments where it's on his face and he's doing his Jim Carrey thing, but it wasn't like a caricature. Like this was just such a beautiful blend of his unique on-screen persona and like really, really good acting.
Yes. And I think, I've seen some of his other serious movies. I remember being very excited for The Number 23.
Oh.
And then being very disappointed by The Number 23.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like, okay, he's going to show how great an actor he is. That's besides the point. It's not his best movie. It's probably it's one of his worst movies. But I think this movie is always, to me, like, if you were going to talk about, like, Jim Carrey is just a funny guy, I would say watch The Truman Show, because he genuinely at times is so sad and you just care so deeply for him as his world is crumbling around him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what moment it was, because I wrote it down, where I felt like there was a moment where you could see here it is. At the midpoint, we see Christoph for the first time. Still wrong, Dylan. But he is giving Marlon the words to say to him, which, boy, again, what a sad moment this is. Marlon is his best friend since he was a little boy, which means also that Marlon has chosen to be an actor and chosen to hide the secret from him their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
Marlon is saying to him, I would never lie to you. I'm your best friend. It can't all be fake, because if it's all fake, then, I'm fake too. Which is awful and like feels like a punch in the gut, like hearing it for him, because he is lying to him. Yeah. And I do believe that Marlon genuinely likes Truman and cares about Truman, and he is like, this guy is my best friend, but yeah, I do keep this major secret from him. I feel like rewatching it, you can sort of put on his face either way. You can put on his face just that he believes him and that he is just having such a tough time with everything else. Or you can put on his face that he is deeply saddened because he sort of knows in that moment that even his best friend is lying to him.
Yeah.
And I sort of was like, I think that if I want to, I can sort of look at it either way.
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing. I sort of think that's a good thing, in the sense that, like, it's really up to you, the viewer, whether you want to think that he has this last shred that he's believing in while his world is crumbling, or if he in that moment is aware like it's all a facade.
Yeah. And again, that's a sign of really, like, a really strong performance, because anything that's going to lend itself to like, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this succinctly, which is obviously a problem for me today. Anytime an actor is indicating something like human behavior, you can look at somebody and kind of guess what they're thinking, but you're not really sure. And a bad actor will indicate like, this is what I'm thinking. And so it's just such a nuanced and beautiful performance by him. And that moment in particular really stood out for me.
Let's see here. I'm going back through my notes to see like what else there was that I like, which there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I really enjoyed that I'd never seen before. I love, and it's just the first thing I wrote down, the way that this movie came out before social media was a thing. This movie came out before reality TV really, there were reality TV shows before this. Yeah. But it was really before reality TV was a fixture of all of our lives, because reality TV now is, it's on every channel. Everybody has a reality TV show they watch, I'm sure. And at the time, that was not the case. There was like some game shows, there was some like prank shows, but it wasn't like it is now when this movie came out in 1998 and was being, written and performed in what they probably started shooting in 96 or 97.
Mhm.
And I think that's absolutely incredible to an extent.
Yeah.
The way that it sort of just nailed what would become the future, because we're all sort of, there's a lot of people out there who are willingly Truman now, but I feel like talking about the people who are willingly Truman is sort of like a different conversation because I want to sort of stay on the movie for a little bit more.
Okay.
And we should definitely get to more of your opinion soon, because I feel like, again, like I said, like I've said in the past, I'm doing too much of the talking here. But
No. Well, just to be perfectly honest, like off the top, I want to talk about the subtext. So why don't you talk about the context?
oh, good. Let me get the text out of the way.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that wrong? The context, subtext? No, it
just the text.
okay. I'm an idiot, but at least I caught myself.
You're only an idiot out of context. In context, you were fine.
Thank you, Dylan.
I wrote, the feelings for Sylvia is one of those things that's sort of sweet on television and when you're watching the movie, but would be scary obsessive in reality.
Yeah, but she clearly reciprocates.
Yes, and it makes sense that she left this impression because he was his only real spontaneous connection he ever had, and is sort of what she really is also symbolic of being this anchor to reality to him.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, I wrote, it makes sense when you realize his wife is spouting product placement at him and doesn't really love him. Which,
well, and their meeting, their like little meet cute scene is horrifying.
Oh, when Meryl falls on him.
Yeah, and she's just like, oh my god, like overly dramatic, like clearly did it on purpose, and I was like, oh my god, I fell, I'm so sorry, and like running her hands all over him, and he's just like, okay.
It's also, and I guess this is a very like slightly subtext thing, where it sort of addresses the way that, I wish I had the term off the top of my head, but there's this thing that when you're in a group, you sort of are more willing to let something go because you assume someone else will do something about it.
Oh,
Because
the bystander effect.
Yes, because the fact that we have millions of people watching this man, the moment that made me think about it was the fact that they faked traumatized him. Well, they really traumatized him, but they faked it by having his father die in the water and making it, in his mind, be his fault. Yep. And I get why it was right for their means, but the fact that, like, so few people tried to do something about it feels terrible when you think about that in reality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that there's a brief moment where Christoph has a call-in segment during this interview. Mm-hmm. And Sylvia, who is the woman that Truman met, his spontaneous connection, says he's not a performer, he's a prisoner. And Christoph, sort of tries to back away from that. He's not a prisoner, your world is the prison, blah, 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 blah. It's not that much longer that when Truman is sort of trying to escape, that the moon turns into a spotlight, a siren is going off, and people are searching for him like he is a prisoner.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I guess I hadn't connected those dots before, that I was like, oh my God, it's quite obvious there.
Yeah.
The last thing that I wrote, another thing for after the movie, how can Truman ever have a real life now? Can you imagine, like, how would you trust the world around you?
I mean, that's like, those kids that are like raised in a cult or are like abducted and like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%. But I'm specifically thinking about, and don't laugh, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Like what is her, do you ever see that with Ellie Kemper?
I saw some of it. I don't think they name like whatever cult she was in. I think it's just some made up cult.
But I don't think it was a cult. I think like she was like raised from like the time she was a baby, like in an underground bunker.
Yeah.
But what is that called? It's not like you're not abducted. You're not in a cult. You're like you would suffer Stockholm syndrome from this.
Kidnapping?
Like, no, it's not kidnapping. I feel like there's a word for it. But either way, you kind of never really fully adjust to the real world, right? Because you're just like, it's like those people that are in prison for, 40 years and then get out and they like don't know how to be in real life.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of similar to The Matrix. It's like,
never seen it.
Oh, fuck. Well, that's going on the list.
Jesus.
The first one's great. I'm not going to say anything about the rest of them, but once you escape from this fake world around you, how do you know that the new world isn't just as fake as the one you were in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like I feel like maybe somebody said it at some point in one of the behind the scenes, and I'm just about to steal it for myself. But if somebody, holds the door open for Truman when he's in the real world, how does he know that like it's just a genuine act from that person?
Right.
Maybe that person is being told by somebody else to get the door. Maybe that person only got the door for him because he's Truman and he watched him on TV. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he's never had a real life. How can he have a real life by this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you do want to get more into the subtext of it, I actually have a few things written down that are more like in depth about it.
Please.
So if you want to start off, because I feel like I've been talking this entire time, please.
Well, I had a real moment watching this movie, and not like I cried, not like like a visceral reaction, but it kind of came at a really good time for me, because there's a moment where, and I'm paraphrasing, so please correct me if I go off course, but Christoph says something along the lines of, we are all trapped or we're all trapped in our own perception of reality, or reality is just how we perceive the world
all
around
accept
us.
the reality that's given to us, or reality
Thank
that's
you.
presented to us, something like that.
That's what he says. Thank you. And then he says that if Truman wanted to leave, he could, but he doesn't want to, because if he wanted to, he would. And it kind of started to you start to notice this theme in the movie of like, Truman does, for all that we know, for all that we are presented with, he does have the autonomy to leave. And, spoiler, at the end of the movie, he does. So we are left to believe. But, it does kind of show you that like all of these people in his life, like it is easier to continue in the reality that and are familiar with. Like, the devil is easier than the devil you don't know. There's definitely a second half of that idiom that I missed.
That was close enough. Yeah, that's about
close
it.
enough. But ultimately, it is so much easier for him to stay and play along. It is much more comfortable for him to stay and play along. And all of the people that are in his reality are kind of coaxing him into staying along. And obviously, in the context of the movie, they're coaxing him to stay along because it's the television show. They want to keep it on the air. Mm-hmm. But I think in real life, we are often kind of living in a reality that maybe we're not super happy with, or maybe we are not really like invested in emotionally as much as we should be. And when we think about changing things, the people around us who are benefiting from us or from the comfort or the reality that we're living in one way or another, don't really want us to make that change. And so it's easier to kind of stay in your everyday reality until you are really faced with the decision of whether or not the pain of change is easier to stomach than the pain of staying the same. Mm. And something that we've never really talked about on the podcast, we've had no reason to talk about on the podcast, is my divorce. I was married. I got married very young, and I kind of had a very similar experience. I was not on a reality show, of course, but I had an experience where I saw my life headed in a direction that I didn't really like and wasn't happy with. And I had a moment where I had to decide, was it worth stirring the pot and shaking up my entire life and blowing up my entire life, getting rid of everything I had built up until that point, all the things I had worked for, my reality, the comfort of the life that I had known, honestly, the reality of plenty of other people? Or was it easier to just kind of shut up and stay comfortable and stay the same? And obviously I chose not to remain in that comfort, but I felt so deeply, like I understood that all of these people are, obviously, again, in the movie they're actors, but in Truman's mind, these people are just like living their life. It's a regular everyday. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Like, are you really going to shake up everybody's world? And every time you think about making a change, you're kind of presented with how hard it's going to be and how much easier it is to just like figure it out and make it work and get over it. And ultimately, he chooses to get in the water and get on the boat and sail. And he realizes when he gets to the end that it's all fake. And it's funny because I think when I decided to make that change and to kind of get on the boat and get in the water and brave the storm, you kind of do realize like it's all fake. Like you can really just wake up in the morning and decide you want to live a totally different life. And you can you can escape this reality that you've created for yourself, even if it's uncomfortable and even if people don't really like it. And it, you know, being in this new apartment, Corey and I just moved into a beautiful new apartment, which I don't think I talked about. I think I talked about that
Surrounded
on the
by
mail
babies,
segment.
though, this apartment.
Surrounded by babies. If you want to live in an apartment where babies are screaming, I can give you my address. Remind me to tell you the story about the laundromat when I'm done making my point. Because it's funny. But you know, and this was the first movie that we had watched in this new apartment. And I was just looking around like, I'm so grateful that I decided to change my reality because it was comfortable and it would have been easy to stay. But it's just such a better life. And you know, that was kind of how it hit for me. And yeah, I just thought it was great.
Well, and it just hit me in such a way, thinking about the fact that, like, damn, there are so many people around you who their life is better if your life doesn't change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
And I think that can be like a very frustrating thing. And I think that, you know, we do, and Truman does by obligation, feel forced to keep things the same because, you know, there are people who care about me. There are people who rely on me, but you know, it is one of those things that it's like, at the end of the day, you do have free will. And I think that's what's most important about it, is having free will. Does Truman have free will at the end of the day? And he thought he did. He never did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything around him was controlled.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my first thing from the Truman Show in-depth analysis. This is ultimately a take on society and the way we perceive religion. So this is the first way that you can perceive it. The film is actually highly critical of Christianity. It states that if there was a real God, our reality is ultimately fake. Nothing is random. Nothing's our choice. Everything is controlled by something that we're not even sure exists. Truman's reality is completely controlled, as stated in the next point, and the film goes on about the fact that our reality may be the same. Every time we step outside, we are at God's hands. Every time it rains, it's not a coincidence. We are constantly being watched, listened, and most importantly, controlled. The Truman Show is expanding on the idea that God may be a puppeteer, and we may simply be the puppets. We blindly trust the puppeteer, not even knowing he is there, and all reality is fake.
Did you come up with that, or did you read that somewhere?
No, I read that. I'm not smart enough to come up with that.
Oh, Jesus. I was like,
I'm smart enough to maybe be like, yeah, obviously Christoph is symbolic of, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, duh. But I think that put it much more eloquently than I'm sure I would have. Do you want another thing from the Truman in-depth analysis?
Please.
Why was the Truman Show a success in this society? Because Truman is the only genuinely real thing in the entire world. His environment is controlled, his life manipulated, but Truman is 100% himself throughout all of it. That's why people want to watch him. They need an escape from their own lie and into someone else's life, someone who is real. Even his name is a play on words. Truman equals true man.
Okay.
And I got one more thing specifically from this. Going into the society, media control is once again presented as a big problem throughout the Truman Show, starting with advertisement. As mentioned explicitly throughout the film, the Truman Show runs 24/7 with no commercial break, which is something that once I heard that line, I was like, that's insane. What do they do when he's taking a shit? What do they do when he's in the shower? What do they do when he's, you know, I'm sure there are times when he has moments to himself, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And there is that moment where they cut to a flashback, and I'm like, but they did that in the show. So I'm sure there are times where they just do that instead. But
yeah,
they mentioned that the only way to make profit is through product placement. Some of the best moments in the movies are actually the unnoticeable ads within Truman's life. The cocoa powder, the shredder, the lawnmower. This is once again a clever commentary on our society. Profit made by product placement, leading to the constant control of what we buy through the media.
Yeah.
And the entire movie could also be considered a play on the allegory of the cave. Do you remember?
Thank you. Oh my God, I was going to bring that up.
Okay, so as soon as like I read that term somewhere, I was like, oh my God, first of all, I of course remember this from like high school philosophy class.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, obviously it fucking applies to this. So the very succinct version, Allegory of the Cave is by Plato. Prisoners who are only able to see shadows on a cave wall, they're chained, all they see is the shadows.
They've been there their whole lives.
Yes, their entire lives, all they know are the shadows on the wall. One of the prisoners breaks free. He is blinded by the light, but eventually his eyes adjust. When he goes back to tell the others, they refuse to believe him to any extent, eventually violently subduing him. Yeah, that was it. I just want to make sure we mentioned the allegory of the cave.
Well, hold on. You have
obviously
not done
applies.
it justice.
Go ahead, Gab. Go deeper.
So the bottom line is that the man who left the cave now knows what it looks like on the outside. He knows what the sun looks like. He has seen trees, and he is astonished at what is outside. And as much as he protests to them that there is a better world outside, they do not believe him. They believe that reality is just the cave, just the shadows, just being chained, and they punish him for trying to say otherwise. But he cannot continue to live in this cave because he has seen the outside.
And they cannot imagine the outside because they have only been in the cave.
Correct. So the point is that once you see the truth, you can't unsee it, and you can't go back to living in a time before you knew the truth. But additionally, if you don't know the truth, you cannot fathom the truth. So you can't be expected to kind of adjust your thinking. So it's true. And the allegory of the cave was a huge part of the past few years for me. Just kind of explaining to people that, like, once I realized I couldn't go back, like once I realized that I was unhappy, that was the end, because you can't unadmit that to yourself. And I think Truman has that moment where he's like, we don't really ever see him step outside of the cave, I don't think, but I do think that we see him start to realize that he's inside of one.
That's a perfect moment for me to transition to one last thing. Why do we not see anything after the moment Truman steps out? Why does it end in that moment? Which obviously spoilers, but we've already started to spoil things. If you haven't seen this movie, you should watch it. It's on Paramount Plus.
It's amazing.
I'm sure you can find it through other ways, but the reason it doesn't continue is because we are the audience invading Truman's privacy. And that's why when he leaves, choosing no longer to be entertainment for the masses, we can't keep watching him. They actually, and this is sort of, it was a get to the facts thing, but I'm going to include it now. In the theater, they wanted to have a camera on audiences so that at one point the movie would stop, it would cut to the camera of the people watching the movie, and then go back to the movie. Obviously, I don't know why they didn't do it, probably because it was extremely cost prohibitive or because it was like so easy to make mistakes with, I'm sure. But just the idea, I think, is fucking really cool.
That is really cool.
And I know that I had seen something somewhere about, the audience also, it shows how while they're watching Truman and while they're so obsessed with this media, they're not living their own lives.
Yeah.
And it specifically applies to, I believe the last thing we actually do see is two of the audience members, the two, I think they're security guards or cops who are watching. And the last thing we hear is, do you remember?
No.
The guy says, what else is on?
Oh, yeah.
Just the way that society will move on immediately to the next thing. We will move on immediately to the next thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's almost nothing about this movie I don't like. And one thing I particularly enjoyed, and it's sort of, I don't know if it's a let's get to the facts thing or a thing for right now, but there was a making of the Truman Show. And, I always just go to YouTube and I type in like behind the scenes, making of the Truman Show and things like that so that I can like start to find some of these things to just have more stuff. And I found like a 20-minute video about the making of the Truman Show. And I was like, oh, cool. It's probably a documentary about the movie. And it was not. What it is Christoph and like the interviewer talking about making the actual show in the Truman Show.
Oh.
And I thought that was so much cooler. Because
that's way cooler.
Yes, I ended up watching the actual, like, behind the scenes thing, and that was fine too. But I was so much more invested and interested in that because it was, those clips you see at the beginning, the interviews with Marlon and Meryl, where they're talking about being on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Those are part of this. And there's like a full extended version, which if I can re-find it, I'll put it in the description below because it's really cool.
That's so awesome.
One of the, a couple of things that I did notice. Laura Linney, who played Meryl, says, well, I guess that's not from that thing. Damn it, Dylan. In the making of the Truman Show, this is a different thing. The interviewer asks Hannah about if the sex is genuine, and it finds out that her contract, she's paid for each sex act. Which brings up, I think, so many moral questions. And she immediately was like, I won't answer that question. I wasn't told that I was going to be asked about that. It's also said at some point that she's the third richest woman in the world from the Truman Show.
Wow. That's dope.
Which makes sense for why you stay on the show, I guess, but it's also like you can't enjoy that wealth.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, it's not like they get like weekends or holidays or like they get to clock out, you know,
they
like
do mention Marlon, like they specifically say 2 times. One, Marlon spent an entire summer delivering Kaiser chickens. Yeah, because he was off the show for a summer.
Yeah.
There's another time where they mentioned he stayed up with Truman and got pneumonia and was out of school for a month.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. But even that, it's like these people who are on the show 24/7, like, yeah, let's say they get a summer off or a month off. They don't have a real life outside. Like, what do they do with that? They don't have any friends or anybody to spend their time with. They don't have significant others, or they're alone.
Yeah, they at least choose it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was also a deleted scene that I thought was like, there was one deleted scene that was worth bringing up. It shows a cast meeting where they're talking about after Hannah and Truman have a baby, how the channel, they're going to go to a 2-channel format. And Lewis, who is the fake actor who plays Marlon, says he's the only one to think about this and to cynically say, but when Truman dies, we go back to a single channel, right? You know what I mean? And I think it's one of those moments that I get why they cut it out, but I think it's nice in the sense that it shows that, okay, no, Truman does seem to actually, Marlon does seem to actually give a shit about Truman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously not enough that he will blow up this entire show, but he seems to care.
Wow. There are a couple of shots in this movie that I think are really great. The first of which is when Truman is going through the revolving door.
I love all those shots that are clearly, you know, the guy holding up the garbage can, and that's how he gets his shot of Truman in the morning coming out of the house.
Yeah.
If you're looking for it, you can see cameras all over the place, fake cameras.
It's really cool.
Yeah, one that I never noticed is he wears a ring, and his ring is a camera.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed that.
Meryl wears a necklace. Her necklace is a camera. And it's just like, oh my God, the complexity that it would take to make this world exist is unbelievable. Like, if you think about it, like, would it ever make sense to start this show? No, because it would cost billions to start.
Yeah.
But it's a very cool idea.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, because I was listening to the podcast about the cults, of course, about the cult of the Kardashians. And something they were talking about was the kind of moral dilemma of these Kardashians who are constantly posting about their children, and everyone in the world knows what their kids look like, where, you know, blah, 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 etc. And it's like, the issue is privacy, right? Like when you're a child, you are at the mercy of your parents. Your parents make all of your decisions for you. They have power of attorney. But at what point does privacy become an issue where, like, you're not old enough to give consent to your image and your likeness being used on the internet, but at the same time, like, it's such a personal thing. And it really did make me think about this movie, because, like, the idea of him being adopted by a corporation and broadcast on television for his whole life, it's like, how, like, could that fly? Is that kind of currently flying right now for the children of these superstars that we just put on TV all day? Like, what's the difference between the two?
There's definitely reality shows out there that have children on them, like Dance Moms, or Honey Boo Boo, or whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah.
Like, and those are kids who, you know, do I think they wanted to be TV stars or really knew what it meant to be on TV? No, not really. And they just are now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would ever, I pray it would never happen with a corporation actually having control over a child. But
right. But
who
like,
knows?
doesn't the Kardashian corporation have control over those children? You know what I mean? Like, what, like, is there really a difference? Exploitation is exploitation, right? Like, we are watching this show, and these kids do not have the ability to give permission for their lives to be broadcast. They don't have a say in it, and nothing ever really leaves, right? Like, you can't really wipe things from the public consciousness. So consciousness. Wow. I had it right the first time. Yeah. Sorry. It's been a long
When
day.
you think about
But
like
anyway.
a child star, like Macaulay Culkin comes to mind, who is somebody who was a huge superstar and then was, you know, never out of the spotlight for years. Or now I think of like Millie Bobby Brown and, you know, the people from Stranger Things who like found fame at 10 and will be famous forever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's still, it's different in the sense that none of them are a total facade and, everything around them is a lie, yada, yada, yada. But yes,
Yeah.
it obviously raises moral questions.
Yeah. I just think it's a little bit less about the child actor because that's like a paying job, whatever. And more like these kids that just are now on television. Like even like the reality shows where it's like the dance moms, like I don't know. I think it's different to specifically talk about like the children of the Kardashian, like Kim's children and Khloe's children who are on this television show, who are all over Instagram, who are all over like whatever, and like not really getting anything out. I don't know. You can see what I mean when I say there's a difference.
Yes. There's also a trade-off where they get to be fabulously wealthy.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah. But anyway, I digress. Continue.
Well, I guess I should ask what else you have opinion-wise, or should I start getting to our facts?
So the last opinion I have is a direct quote from Corey. Let me pull it up. Hold on. The man watching the Truman Show from his bathtub.
Love that guy.
Okay. The direct quote from Corey. They put him in there for this? That's like what Adam Sandler uses Rob Schneider for.
I think one of my favorite moments of the entire movie is him on that boat and the man in the tub holding onto the shower curtain going, hold on.
Yes. While he's in the storm.
We've all totally watched TV like that too. Like maybe not in our bathtubs, but like we've all been watching something and been like, come on, you know what I mean? That type of thing.
Yeah. Me watching the Mets.
Especially with sports. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Now should we get to some facts?
Please.
I want the truth!
Face the facts, ducks.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
I guess first I should get to my ratings and such. I want to make sure I go back to this because I do have a thing that Laura Linney said. Don't let me forget about it, Gab.
I won't. I promise. And then you got to let me tell you the story about the laundromat.
Don't let me forget about it, Gab.
Okay.
You have to remember all the things. I don't trust me. Okay. So IMDb gives this an 8.2 out of 10. If we go to Rotten Tomatoes and the tomato meter, it gets a 95% with an average rating of 8.4 out of 10, 145 fresh reviews, and 8 rotten.
Wow.
Audience score, 89%, average score of 4.1 out of 5. The movie was directed by Peter Weir, who also directed Dead Poets Society, Witness, and Master and Commander. Written by Andrew Niccol, who also wrote Gattaca, Lord of War, Simone, which I don't know if you ever saw Simone. It's a similar concept about like control, but it's a much worse movie. Al Pacino decides to make a fake person, basically. He's got this model who's like a CGI person, and people start falling in love with the celebrity, and they don't know that she's not real.
Lame.
It's not that good. And he also wrote The Terminal.
Oh, cool.
The movie stars Jim Carrey, who, you obviously know, but I'll say like from Ace Ventura, The Mask, Bruce Almighty. Laura Linney, who you might know from Ozark, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which scared the fuck out of me, and Primal Fear.
She's Harris, so good in Ozark. Sorry.
I still haven't seen it.
You fucking suck.
I'll watch it when you watch it. Always Sunny.
Ugh.
Ed Harris from Apollo 13, Pollock, and Creepshow.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, Noah Emmerich from Miracle and Super 8.
Did you say Jim Carrey?
Are you serious? That was the first one I said.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll listen. I'm just double checking.
Are you just checking out right now? The movie was nominated for an Academy Award. Okay. So it was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. What do you think they were?
Oh, Jesus Christ. If I had to guess, I would say best screenplay.
Correct. Best original screenplay.
Best special effects.
No.
Best. I'm going to say not best actor.
It was not nominated for best actor,
which is a shame.
Agreed.
Supporting actress?
No. You're very close, so I'm going to tell you. Supporting actor. Ed Harris.
That's crazy that Laura Linney, that he got it over Laura Linney, but okay.
The only person that I feel like is a big enough presence that I feel like would probably have deserved it is Jim Carrey, or maybe Noah Emmerich. I think could have also maybe been deserving, because I think that's a really good performance too.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously Jim Carrey deserved it. But I think Laura Linney did a really good job.
She does. And Peter Weir was nominated for Best Director.
Okay.
The movie cost $60 million to make, grossed $264 million.
Big hit.
The critics' consensus, a funny, tender, and thought-provoking film, The Truman Show is all the more noteworthy for its remarkably prescient vision of runaway celebrity culture and a nation with an insatiable thirst for the private details of ordinary lives.
Yeah.
So many words there that tried to fuck me up, but not today. Let's go to some of our reviews. Roger Ebert, obviously from the Chicago Sun-Times. The underlying ideas made the movie more than just entertainment. Like Gattaca, the previous film written by Nichol, it brings into focus the new values. Right after I gave myself props. The new values that technology is forcing on humanity. Jonathan Rosenbaum from the Chicago Reader. In short, this pretends to be daring while parroting that much of the TV industry. God damn it, Gav, I'm botching all over the place.
I'm so sorry.
This
I can't help you.
pretends to be daring while parroting what much of the TV industry already thinks about itself and its audience, but it's still pretty much fun to watch. Peter Rayner from New York Magazine. This is a profound movie for people who don't like to think, or perhaps for people who are in the media and of the media and can't imagine any life outside of it.
Wow.
Pretty harsh, bro.
Damn.
Heath Phipps. I did not write where he is from. It does not matter. Weir keeps things fairly entertaining and is admirably not afraid to veer more toward drama than comedy. But his film, like the world it portrays, is all surface.
Ew.
Yeah, right? Finally, David Edelstein from Slate. The movie might have been a soulless exercise without Jim Carrey. With him, it has an authentic tremulousness. Ooh, got through that one. And also a dread, as if Pinocchio needed to take on Geppetto and Jiminy Cricket to become a real boy.
Oh, wow. That's very cool.
Did he have to use the word tremulousness, though? Not cool, bro.
No, he's just trying to flex on you.
Okay. Now, from the actual making of the movie. Okay. Laura Linney said that she believes Hannah Gill, who is the actress who plays Meryl, doesn't really like Truman that much. She's powerful and famous because of the show and doesn't want to lose it, but can feel it falling apart. So in desperation, the smile just keeps getting a little bigger and a little bigger. She also thinks that Hannah Gill is probably jealous of Truman and wants her own spin-off series.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And also, I think that's what made Laura Linney's performance so good.
Yes. In the end credits, the cast is divided between Truman's world, Christoph's world, and the viewers.
That's cool.
Ed Harris and Jim Carrey never met during the filming.
What?
It makes sense. They technically don't share a scene. Like, the most they do is they have a conversation, but not actually in the same place.
Yeah. Interesting.
A bottle of vitamin D is on Truman and Meryl's kitchen table, needed for those without exposure to the real sun.
Wow. Dope.
Every street name in Sea Haven refers to a movie actor. Lancaster Square, Barrymore Road. All of the cast members are likewise named after movie stars. Meryl, Marlon, Lauren, Kirk, Angela.
Wow.
Meryl Streep, Marlon Brando, Lauren Bacall, Kirk Douglas, Angela Lansbury?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I was like, is there another Angela? Okay. Angela Jolie? No, that's not right. The iconic poster, a rendition of Jim Carrey's face comprising hundreds of individual images, was created by artist Rob Silverman at a rumored cost of $75,000.
Worth every penny.
When Siskel and Ebert reviewed The Truman Show, they not only gave the film 2 thumbs up, but they gave an on-air apology to Jim Carrey for saying he would never have a career when they panned Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Wow, that's honestly amazing.
This one I think is really interesting. While figuring out how to play Christoph, Ed Harris suggested him being a hunchback, giving him an unhappy childhood and a desire for Truman to have an idealized life. But he changed his mind after trying on the prosthetic hump and seeing what he looked like.
What a bizarre addition to that movie would that have been?
It would have been a bold choice.
Yeah.
As of 2020, Jim Carrey is the only actor, male or female, to win a Golden Globe for Best Actor in both the drama and comedy musical categories without being nominated for an Academy Award. Carrey won the Golden Globe for Best Actor, Drama, and Best Actor Comedy Musical for The Truman Show and Man on the Moon, respectively.
Wow.
This was the only film that year of 1998 to be Oscar nominated for Best Director, but not Best Picture. Let's see. As Marlon restocks the vending machine, he starts to remove candy bars from Truman turns to leave, thinking the scene has ended. Nobody uses a vending machine on a set where all the food is free.
Interesting.
Also, because he only has a limited amount of candy bars, when Truman turns around, he has to take them out so he can continue pretending to do his job.
Yeah.
Oh, Truman's house was filmed in the childhood home of Florida Republican Representative Matt Gaetz. Today, the house is decorated with a sign, not only confirming that it is the Gaetz family home, but the picture-perfect house from the Jim Carrey movie.
Yikes. That is strange.
Weird twist there.
Yeah, holy shit.
And this one is more like hypothesis than for sure. When Truman reunites with his father and sobs, he isn't crying tears of joy. He's crying because he realizes that even the people he was closest to were lying to him and his whole life was a sham. In many ways, it's the catalyst that finally pushes Truman to escape his fabricated reality and reunite with his true love, Sylvia.
I could see that.
And also about his father coming back, Truman's spy ring came from his father. He caught it just before his father drowned and has worn it since that trauma. He gives it back to him when they meet again. That's why they struggle to find Truman when he escapes at the end of the movie. My only question was, where did he get that boat from? Did you steal a boat?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
That's all the facts I got.
All right.
Now that we got through the facts, Gab, are you ready to get to some mail?
I am ready to get to some mail. Let's mail it up.
Mail time! When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
Alrighty, so we're going to start with your boy, Scotty Cameron. Is he your boy? Did he Venmo you ever?
I don't think that he has. So no, fuck you, Scotty.
Sorry about that, I guess. All right. Here's what Scotty said, that fucker. I think we can enjoy both Star Trek and Star Wars. I think trying to assess and debate which is better and getting at each other's throats as to which is better, to me, that's all pointless. Both Star Trek and Star Wars are great. They've spawned great movies, shows, comics, and games while also having their fair share of stinkers. Star Wars still has to... That was just me. This wasn't Scotty that fucked that up. Just me. Star Wars still has to answer for the train wrecks the prequels were, and Star Trek has to answer for the disaster film that was The Final Frontier. Needless to say, I think we can love both Star Trek and Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back and Wrath of Khan are both peak cinema.
I mean, nice of Scotty to be diplomatic. Very Star Trek of him. We don't necessarily have to agree, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I hope you don't live long or prosper, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like 99% of my
less.
Star Trek knowledge.
Same.
Okay. We have another comment from Scotty Cameron. I was writing that email at midnight. I guess this is referring to last week when I had problems with the Graham Rivers email. Not 5 minutes ago when I had problems with just speaking. I was writing that email at midnight and my Grammarly attachment wasn't picking up my errors. I learned about the Woody Allen controversy from a College Humor sketch, Scarlett Johansson's Agent, and there's a bit where the comedian playing Johansson says she wants Woody Allen to direct a documentary about her, and the comedian playing her agent is like, oh God, praising him in his movies is so hard now. Also, I don't think Woody Allen's ever done a documentary. I don't think he'd be good for that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny that Kevin Spacey is a great actor, just a garbage person. It's just harder to block the facts about that when watching, but still possible. I generally think Spacey was good as Lex Luthor in Superman Returns. Granted, that was a boring and hollow movie, but there are still good performances in the film. That's the last I will say on distinguishing art from the artist.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Kevin Spacey, great actor. I don't know. Do you ever watch The Morning Show on Apple TV?
I have not. Do you actually have Apple TV?
I think I did at some point. I don't know if I still do. But I know it was worth it because The Morning Show is such a good TV show. And it is essentially kind of about like the Matt Lauer thing on NBC where, whatever. And it's so good. And it kind of asks those questions of like, is having your entire life ruined and your career just like abruptly ended, is that punishment enough? And I think that's such an interesting question. Like Kevin Spacey is for all intents and purposes just like gone, right? Like he is gone from the cultural zeitgeist. And it's like, is that worse than, the punishment that like a regular person would face for the same crime?
Well, that depends whether or not the regular person would just go to jail, because jail is worse than bad reputation.
Yeah, but isn't he kind of in jail?
No,
Like
what
the
kind of
jail
bullshit
of
are you giving
life.
here? Oh my God, no. The jail of life.
We're all in the jail of life, Dylan.
Yeah, get your mumbo jumbo metaphorical bullshit out of here. He's not in the jail of life. I'm sure that Kevin Spacey is still living well. He's not like making license plates for a penny a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that really where we get all of our license plates from? Or is that just like a cliche?
I think that's a real thing.
Damn. So you mean to tell me that somebody out there who gets some like lame vanity plate that says like sexy baby, there's like a big fat inmate hammering away?
Yeah, gives him something to talk about. Well, not hammering away. I think it's just like a machine that they push some buttons on. Maybe not the vanity plates. I don't know.
I'd like more. Scotty, do me a favor, look this up.
I
Scotty,
forgot
be a
Scotty's our
lamb.
Jamie. We also have another comment. This is from, I want to say that this is Pedro Enrique, HP Edits. I think it's Pedro Enrique. Or Enrique Pedro. I don't know. I just knew at least one of you must have had trouble with musicals. It's definitely Pedro.
There we go.
I just had this hunch. It seems like most people have trouble with movie musicals. It's almost like a requirement amongst movie podcasts. At least one or two hosts hate musicals. What's funny is that during this month, some of the best films I've watched were musicals. Tick, Tick, Boom and the remake of West Side Story. Did you see Tick, Tick, Boom?
I did not, but I do like appreciate Jonathan Larson.
You know, again, not being a musical person, like Giselle loves Rent. Absolutely loves it. And each time I watch it, I'm like, that is fine. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And Tick, Tick, Boom, I was
the
like,
musical is so much better than the movie. I'm sorry, I just need to say that. I hate the movie. I love the musical.
I think she enjoys both, but obviously we've watched the movie together. But having watched Tick, Tick, Boom, I was like, you know what? I get it. This is really good.
How was Andrew Garfield?
He's great.
Hmm.
He's
Is
a
it
great
worth
actor.
watching?
Is it worth watching? Well, it's on Netflix. You have Netflix?
Yeah, I have Netflix.
Yeah, so fucking watch it. You're not paying anything more than you would for it, you know?
Okay. I guess I'm not really concerned about the money as much as I am about the time.
Yeah, that's worth a couple hours.
I'll say this. My favorite musical of all time is a musical called The Last 5 Years. Are you familiar?
No, I don't know why I thought you were going to say The Last of Us.
No.
I would
although
so be
that
down
would
for a
be
musical
interesting.
version of The Last of Us.
Oh my God, I haven't seen The Last of Us, but I do love oh boy, I love
Pedro
when I'm
Pascal?
telling you how much I love someone and then I can't think of their name. Yes, thank you, Pedro Pascal. Okay, side note, The Last 5 Years is this amazing musical by Jason Robert Brown, and it stars two characters, and they've just gone through a breakup, and one of them tells the story of the breakup. The girl tells it from the end and then goes to the beginning, and the guy tells it from the beginning to the end, and they only meet once in the middle, and they sing a song together. It's great. They made a movie version of it with Anna Kendrick.
I feel like you might have mentioned this to me once.
I probably did. I haven't seen it. I would like to watch it. I heard it is bad.
It sounds conceptually like a cool idea, but I'm also like, why would she tell it backwards? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think it's like conceptually pretty cool.
Like, I wouldn't
because
tell
it's
you
not-
like, what'd you do yesterday? I wouldn't go, I went to sleep, then I ate dinner, then I got out of work.
But it's not like a narrative. It's not like she's sitting there saying, let me tell
That's
you
true.
the story. It's just that like it is unfolding this way.
Yeah, that's like, we watched Comet and I wasn't like, well, why doesn't it just tell me what happened? Like, I'm just being a dick for the sake of it, aren't I?
Yeah.
But Tick, Tick, Boom, definitely good. I did not see the remake of West Side Story. Although my grandma hounded me
neither.
for weeks to figure out HBO Max so that she could watch the remake of West Side Story.
That's why she needed HBO Max.
This was like a month-long saga of phone calls of me writing out
I
instructions,
remember.
which the instructions that I have to write are like, step 1, turn on television. Like, and then she needs the reverse steps. It can't just be like, well, undo the steps you did. She's like, no. Now that you've gotten to step 7, which is I'm at HBO Max, you got to give me another step 7, which says get out of HBO Max. I'm like, okay, fucking hell.
I
But
just
she-
took a
she
sip of
enjoyed
tea
it.
while you were explaining that. That was so great. I remember that saga that was happening not that long ago. And old people. You know, Corey and I talk about this from time to time, like putting your parents in a home, not a terrible idea, because then that shit becomes somebody else's fucking problem.
I think the technology stuff is still your problem, but I think a lot of the other like day-to-day things aren't your problem. Like, I'm not getting the phone call
Even in a
that's like,
home?
I can't reach the thing on the top shelf today. And I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, somebody else can help you get the thing off the top shelf.
Yeah, but what about like turning on the HBO Max? Like somebody in the home will be able to do that.
I don't know, man. I think if I worked in that home, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I guess you'll have to ask somebody else. Like, I'd be like, I don't want to do this.
Working in an old folks home is the same as working in like a daycare. It's the same thing.
No, except the children are like worse. They're angrier. Like,
I don't know that that's true.
I don't know, man. I feel like dealing with old people is harder than dealing with kids. I can be like, I've turned on the cartoon. You are fully distracted now. Dealing with old people, they'd be like, my cartoon ended. Get me on HBO Max now.
But I feel like in both situations, you can be like, oh, sorry, I forgot how to turn it on. I don't remember. But would you like some macaroni and cheese? Maybe we can have some macaroni and cheese. Like,
wait, was that for the? I was like, is that for the baby or the old people?
Both.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. I was gonna say, like, you could trick the kid and be like, oh, sorry, SpongeBob's not on the TV today. You're gonna have to watch what's on now. And I can say, I'd be like, HBO Max is down for the day. Sorry.
It's so true. It's so true. And also today, you want to hear something really scary? Today is Matt's 17th birthday. My little brother is 17 years old today. Horrible. And in honor of his birthday, I'll tell you a story about when we were younger. I mean, he was like 3 or 4, so I was like 16, 17, whatever. He would always come in when I was on the computer, on like the family desktop computer. That's how long ago we're talking. And he'd be like, computer, because he wanted to go to like nick.com or whatever. And I used to be like, oh, did mommy just say lollipop? You want a lollipop? And he'd run to my parents going, lollipop. And they'd be like, why the fuck do you think you're getting a lollipop? But it got him off my ass. And so I always think whenever there's a child or an old person, I'm like, oh, does somebody want a lollipop?
It's like the opposite of the old cliche, like giving candy to a baby.
Exactly.
Oh
And now he has a raging sugar addiction, and it's all because of me.
It just makes me remember when my brother and I had a family computer in our playroom, and it lasted like a month, and then it was just like, kill me. we were probably like 14 and 17. That computer was like, please, I'm loaded with viruses.
I remember that.
From games. We were playing so many games.
So many games. Although, you know what? I'll say Zach was really good about downloading music for me on like Bear Share, which was a virus central.
I feel like Napster and Livewire is the last time that Zach was like, I can trust you for tech stuff. And now Zach's like, how do I get to the YouTube? And I'm like, you are not this old.
It's so true. Yeah, LimeWire he had. Now it's over.
Okay. Now that we've totally derailed, let's finish Pedro's comment here.
Okay. All right, Pedro.
Don't ever let Lindsay Ellis, famous ex-YouTube essayist and musical fan, ever hear that part about Phantom of the Opera. I think she'd have a heart attack. What'd you say about Phantom of the Opera?
That it sucks and I fell asleep during it.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
We won't tell Lindsay. I don't know her. One more thing from Pedro. Short one. I can't believe I wrote my shortest email yet, and it still took 15 minutes of the podcast. I guess it's unavoidable.
Well, Pedro, you're in for a real treat when you hear this one.
Oh, we still got emails to go through.
Oh, boy.
First, Trevor is back.
Trevor.
Hello again. Hey, Gab and Dylan. Wanted to quickly respond to Gab's comments about AP classes and grading on a curve.
Yes.
I'm actually an English teacher, and when I taught in high school, I often used a curve, especially for harder units. I now teach middle school and never grade on a curve on tests. Here's the thing to ask. This is actually so interesting and so unexpected. I'm like, wait, somebody actually knows?
This is great. I can't wait.
Here's the thing to ask. What is the point of the test or assignment being curved? Is it to get 100% of the answers correct, or is it to assess where students are currently? Curves are a great way to measure students without the consequence of a mathematically detrimental grade. Example, if I taught high schoolers Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales? I'm going with it. In the original Middle English dialect, I would be ecstatic if students could get 50% of the test correct. Thus, the kid who scored a respectable 50% would be given the 100%, and everyone else accordingly. The curved grade reflects where the teacher expects you to be, not an expert or master of the material, just that you have the expected amount of knowledge or skill. Sorry, I tried to be brief. To make up for this lofty email about not movies, here are some movies I think are worth checking out for the future episodes. Before we get to his movies, I do not think he went long there, and that totally makes sense now. I get the curve.
Yeah, I get the curve. I appreciate it, Trevor. Also, trust me, that was not a long email. You want to hear a long email, you open up the episode about The Room.
Movies that Trevor recommended, Major League. I have seen it. Have
Why
you?
does that sound familiar?
It's a baseball movie?
No.
It's
What's
fine.
it about?
I feel like the owner of...
I don't care.
Okay. The Boondock Saints.
Nope.
I have seen it.
What's that about?
Two super Irish dudes who start taking out the... Oh my God. I feel like I haven't watched that since I was like 20. And I feel like if I watch it now, I'll be scared that I'll hate it. Like, I'm like, I loved that when I was 16. And I'm like, oh no, what if I realize it's trash?
Yeah. Always. I mean, look at the Lizzie McGuire movie.
Look at the Lizzie McGuire movie. Pure trash. Drop Dead Fred.
I love that movie. Trevor, I love that movie. Dylan has never seen it. It is on my list of movies to do for the podcast. Trevor, if you're listening, and we know that you are, you're my guy.
Trevor, it sounds like we'll get to that at some point. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I saw once and I remember it being fine.
Nah.
Yeah. Cheers.
Dylan, what's
Trevor.
that about?
I don't remember. The Answer to All Life is like 42 or something. I don't remember.
I don't care.
Whatever. All right, here we go. Pedro Enrique, True Lies and The Room.
Ooh.
Hello, Dylan and Gab. Here I am back again. I don't know why that just reminded me most is like for The Simpsons. Here I am while you eat. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
God damn it.
Oh my God. Side note, there is a grocery store across the street from our new apartment, and it's called Garden of Eden. And every time, and it's actually this like gourmet, beautiful grocery store with like all this fancy shit in it. And every time, now every day, because we see it every time we leave the apartment, but every time we go there, Corey goes, in the Garden of Eden, honey. And we've like pulled up the clip and we keep singing it. Oh man.
I'm just picturing Homer going, Marge, remember when we used to make out to this hymn?
Remember we used to make love to this hymn?
Okay. We got like a sentence in there. Hello, Dylan and Gab. Here I am back again to share some of my thoughts on the films I watched this week. So let's go. As I write this, it's Sunday, my 25th birthday. Happy birthday, Pedro.
Happy birthday.
I'm 5 years away from 30 and freaking out. Don't worry.
Hey. Fuck you.
Don't worry. Your body goes to shit. You don't feel so good no more. You don't remember things, but you don't remember that you hurt so much. So it feels good sometimes.
Yeah. You know, I woke up the morning of my 30th birthday and my neck kind of hurt, and it has just never stopped hurting since. It's just never been the same. So you have that.
That was a long time ago, too. That's like 10 months ago, isn't it?
Yeah, my birthday's coming up. I'm going to be 31. You guys, you know, as I approach the end of my life, I really feel as though the most important, I'm just kidding. I don't feel anything. I feel that I need some Tylenol for my fucking neck, but that's about it.
Truth. Speaking of truth, True Lies. Pedro says, I was excited to watch this one. It's one of the few James Cameron films I didn't see, but sadly, this one didn't work for me. Now, before you strap me into a rocket and shoot me at a helicopter, let me explain. I absolutely love the action in this film. It's classic James Cameron. It's awesome. But one part that felt very weird to me was the shift in focus. The first 15 to 20 minutes, it's about the terrorists, and then for nearly an hour, it's about Harry's failing marriage. I was much more interested in the terrorist story, and the movie never came back to it until the last minute. The other problem was the comedy. Though I did have some laughs, it just didn't work on me. I was hoping that Helen was going to get a divorce by the end. I do agree when you guys said that this was way, way creepier than You've Got Mail. And also that one Bill Paxton line about 10-year-olds is extremely weird and took me completely out of the movie. Do you remember that?
Of course I do. I think about that all the time.
I feel bad that
like
I remember
because
I'm like,
that line in there.
It's a weird line. And if you don't know what line we're talking about, I don't want to say it on the internet. You watch the movie and you'll figure it out.
Just Google it. I'm sure there are articles about how weird it is.
I did have one big laugh, and that was when during a meeting, a chair swung and Charlton Heston appeared, looking like a dollar store Nick Fury. I howled with laughter, had to pause for at least 30 seconds. He looked ridiculous. It's not a bad film, but I hope for more fun. Solid classic action film, but not worth watching before you die, in my opinion. P.S. I can't believe... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Please. Postscript me.
I can't believe Gab does not like Jamie Lee Curtis. I've had a crush on her for years. I'm just gonna come out and say it. My brother says the exact same thing. Zach is like, "You got to throw a bag on Jamie Lee Curtis's face," and I'm like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "It may as well be your face, Dylan." He's like, "That's how unattractive her face is," and I'm like, "Okay."
See, I agree with him. I
He's
just
like,
think
Danny
she's...
DeVito also would be better. Like,
I just think she's got a weird face, and I think she's like lanky, and she's not like feminine. Like, she doesn't have like an hourglass figure. Like, she's just like a tall, lanky, like a Karen haircutted, and she's funny and feisty and like awesome. But at no point was she ever sexy. Sorry.
I can't believe we're talking about the same person here, but okay. Let's agree to disagree, just like this is Star Wars and Star Trek, and move on to Pedro's comments on The Room.
I want to say one more thing. Pedro, good on you for being able to disagree with us. That's all.
Yes, even though you're wrong when you disagree with us, but I appreciate it. The Room. Now, this is what I was waiting for. I had already seen some clips of this movie on the internet. I have to say, what I find so surprising about this film, it went by pretty fast. It was still painful to watch, but it wasn't a slog like most bad films. This movie is some grade A garbage. I mean, truly trash. Between the acting, which was flatter than the earth and as lifeless as a robot, and the writing, which can only be described as barely coherent at best and insultingly stupid at worst, the movie is the biggest unintentional comedy I've ever seen. Also, I'd like to praise the actor who plays Danny, Philip Haldeman, whose creepiness levels rival Christian Bale's in American Psycho.
Oh, wow.
Another issue is that at some point I had to start skipping the sex scenes. You can't skip the sex scenes.
Oh, come on, Pedro.
Not only because of their frequency, awkwardness, and background music, but also because I had to deal with the actors doing ADR, for those who don't know, automated dialogue replacement. He wrote that, not me. For the scenes, and it was some of the worst ASMR whispers I've heard. I do not need Tommy Wiseau whispering and moaning in my ears. Now, here are my 3 favorite lines from the film. Number 1.
Do it in the voice.
Okay, I gotta reset it first. I don't. God, can anyone do Tommy Wiseau like Tommy Wiseau?
Do your best.
If a lot of people loved each other, the world would be a better place to live. Said by Johnny, a message of hope in these trying times. You don't understand anything, man. Leave your stupid comments in your pocket. Said by Mark, totally going to use this in an argument. It's a very mature response. I have said that since watching the movie.
Of course you have.
If you think I'm tired today, wait until you see me tomorrow. Said by Claudette, Lisa's mom, and honestly, same. I've written scripts at 3 a.m. and woke up at 10 to get to class, so I get it. The Room is worth watching before you die. It's a classic if you're looking for bad films, and this one is one of the greatest worst films of all time.
Couldn't agree more.
Now for the question of the week, which I feel like we have to be brief about our answers for, whatever the fuck it is.
Fine.
Inspired by some of the couples in these films, Harry and Helen from True Lies, Johnny and Lisa from The Room, what are your favorite shitty couples in media? Joker and Harley Quinn are my pick. Hope this was fun. I'll do my best to watch some films in between podcast episodes. See you two next week. Do you have a favorite shitty couple?
You know, that's an interesting question because, like, first of all, in media, does that mean they have to be fictitious or like movie characters?
I don't think so. It just said in media.
Well, my favorite shitty couple? I don't know. Does anything come to mind for you?
It's such a hard question because if they're shitty, how are they my favorite? And if they're my favorite, I probably don't find them so shitty.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you're allowed to have a favorite, least favorite thing. Like, what's your favorite bad movie? You know what I mean?
Probably Yeti, Curse of the Snow Demon.
Oh, okay.
Great. I had that one ready to go. But don't ask me about a shitty couple, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like, now I feel the pressure to answer quickly.
You know what? I feel like I'm going to ask you, Pedro, give me some more examples of what you mean by shitty couples and our favorite possibilities. Because I feel like the only answer I would have gone to is like Joker and Harley are. Even then, I'm like, are they your favorite shitty couple in the sense that, like, are they shitty because they don't like each other, or are they shitty because, like, you feel they're shittily written?
Or they do shitty things together.
I request further elaboration.
Yeah, sorry, Pedro. Or abandon ship, ask us another question.
Trevor gives you an incomplete on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one last email from our boy, Scotty Cameron. Game night.
All right, Scotty.
Hello, Dylan and Gab. Oh, okay, wait.
Hello, Dylan and Gab. I want to play a game.
You have spent the last months trying to figure out what is a movie to watch before you die, and on your journey, you have found movies to watch before you die and ones that aren't. However, you've yet to find a movie that you should not watch before you die. This is not a movie that doesn't meet the threshold of a movie to watch before you die, but a movie that you should avoid watching at all costs. A movie that you are better off dying instead of seeing. Right now, you are about to get an influx of Pauly Shore movies, from Biodome to Opposite Day to Pinocchio. Your job is to find one you are better off dying instead of seeing. If you do not, the Lizzie McGuire movie will play on repeat on every device you own. Live or die, make your choice.
First of all, I have so many things to say. Number one, what a commitment to go with the voice. I'm proud of you. That was great. It was a bit and I loved it. Number two,
thank you.
I think that's a great idea, Scotty. I love that. Number three, but the word biodome just sent me into a tizzy. Number one, that movie blows. But number two, would you like to tell the biodome story, Dylan?
Okay, well, you're only partially accurate. So
it was biosphere. It was
the biosphere that you're thinking of. So my brother was sleep talking one night and he went up to my mom and said, "The biosphere." And I was like, "What? The biosphere. Dylan has it. He has the biosphere." And it was like, okay. Like that was pretty much the end of it. And he went back to sleep.
Didn't he go into your room and try to get it?
No, there was something to get. There's no fucking biosphere.
Well, I know, but I thought he went into your room and they had to like coax him back to bed.
No. Do you have a movie that you would die before watching again?
Clerks.
Oh, you did.
I'm just kidding. What was that? I don't see. This is such a big question because there are so many movies that I hated, but it's like, would I rather die than watch it? I don't know.
Well, in reality, like if you're actually holding a knife to my throat, like I'd rather just live, like if possible. So like any movie, I'd rather like, I don't know. I'd rather watch any movie than actually have to die right now.
Right.
The closest I can get is the only movie that I've ever like has been seared in my memory as being terrible. And it's the Lindsay Lohan classic, I Know Who Killed Me.
Interesting, because I remember it being bad, but like not that bad.
Again, I've only watched it once, and I remember just hating the shit out of it. Gab's still trying to get me to hear the baby, and I don't hear the baby. Listeners, let us know if you hear a baby.
This baby has been the best form of birth control on fucking planet Earth. I can't believe it is so obnoxious all day, every day. We were in the elevator with them once. It's like a mom, and then there's like a 3-year-old, and then this baby. And these kids are just running buck fucking wild, like standing in the doorway of the elevator. The mother just like has no idea what's happening, not paying any attention, not like seems like a pushover, like has never disciplined these kids. And I'm just like, I can't listen to this baby scream all the time. The baby wakes up at like 2 a.m. and I'm like, bro, gotta go to work.
They gotta put those kids in an old folks home.
Honestly.
Yeah. Best way you do
and
it.
And it ain't gonna be with me. All right. Anyway, a movie that I would rather there are so many that I feel like I really hated and that were like objectively bad. The only one that is currently coming to mind, and I think it's because we recently talked about it, was that movie with Bob Odenkirk. Nobody. Yeah.
I actually think he addresses this further in the email, so let me continue. I just had to do a Saw bit since we're talking about games. After listening to the episode, I decided to actually watch Game Night over the weekend because I had some spare time over the weekend and felt like watching a movie. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of laughs, especially whenever Gary is on screen, from getting shot to depicting himself watching The Green Mile. I had to look up Jesse Plemons to see what else I had seen him in. Turns out he was in Battleship and Vice, so that's where I recognized him from. I also really like how well choreographed the egg toss scene was and how the camera panned to whoever got the egg instead of making quick cuts. I also love the cameos from Commissioner Gordon and Colonel Stryker, which is Jeffrey Wright and Danny Houston. This is a movie to watch before you die. Hey, we're all in agreement. On Nobody is a movie that's selling point was having the same screenwriter as the John Wick movies. That movie was meh. It's nowhere near as good as any of the John Wick movies, with as much as it tries to emulate them. I also agree with Dylan's point about current superhero movies being less memorable. They're prioritizing humor and special effects over good character and story writing. They need to be more innovative and unique like the Dark Knight movies and Logan instead of being just generic like Ant-Man or Black Adam. I would like to see Invincible as a movie, given that show is probably the best superhero title released in the past few years. Just some food for thought. Oh, and Scotty's asking us the question, have you seen Renfield yet? If so, what did you think? Sincerely, Scotty.
Not yet, Scotty, but I think it's going to happen.
We have not seen it yet. Now that our mail segments are getting longer than us actually talking about the movie of the week, should we get back to the verdicts for the Truman Show?
Let's get back to the verdict, but don't you forget to give Zach the biosphere.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
All right, Gab, I'm going to go first. I suggested this movie. I obviously think it's a movie to watch before you die. I think you can put so much on it. I think it is a career best performance from Jim Carrey. And I think that it is just a movie that is funny, is dramatic. It gives you a little bit of everything you would want. Yeah, I think that you can read into it in many ways. As we said, you can read into it as being about Christianity, as being about society, as being about the media. But I think if you're just watching it, you're still going to have a good time no matter what you're thinking about. So, Gab, I put it on to you. Is it Dylan, before you die?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think it is a wonderful performance from all parties involved. I think it is poignant, and I know I'm using that word correctly. I think it is it just speaks to the human plight of wanting truth and authenticity. And I just want to throw out there, because it is very important to me, to everybody listening, that if you are unhappy and if you want a new reality, you can always find one. And admitting to yourself that you want change is the most important part. And once you do that, once you step outside of the cave, you cannot go back inside the cave. And it is always more beautiful in the sun. Thank you.
I feel like we should just end right there, but we got to do like that
shoddy
podcaster thing and be like, hey, where can you find us? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
If you want, you can send us an email, which we love our emails and we love hearing what you think, at movies2watchbeforeyoudie@gmail.com. Or you can send us a voice message. Where, Gab?
Anchor.fm/movies to watch, baby.
Nailed it. We're so good
Not
at
the
that.
baby. Don't type the baby part.
Don't type
Just
the
movies
baby.
to watch. Speaking of babies, that baby shut the fuck up.
Well, he knows the podcast is done. He's like, I don't got nothing to say no more.
Yeah. Fucking nightmare.
Thank you for listening. Specifically you, baby.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, but especially the baby that is screaming in the background. I can't wait to listen back to this episode and see if we can hear him.
Yes, that'll be fun for all of us. I expect many comments with baby.
I never got to tell you about the laundromat, but I'll save it for next episode.
No.
Sorry.
Why don't you let me fix you some of this new Mococo drink? All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mountain Nicaragua, no artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?